Imagine this. You wake one morning, and before light fully enters your eyes, you notice the quiet disorder breathing in your home. Clothes draped over a chair like forgotten versions of yourself. Dishes stacked in small monuments to yesterday's fatigue. Dust collecting in corners as if time itself has decided to stay there with you. You tell yourself you'll deal with it later, but later is the ghost that never comes. Something deeper than laziness has you bound. It's not neglect. It's a dialogue beneath awareness, what depth psychology would call an unconscious conversation between your soul and the world it has created. Your house is not merely a space you live in. It is a living extension of your psyche. Each corner, each forgotten object is a fragment of your inner landscape. When you refuse to clean, you are not avoiding dirt. You are avoiding yourself. You are turning away from the parts of you that ache to be seen, from thoughts you've buried beneath the emotional carpet that hides the terrain of your daily life. Pause for a moment. Consider this word, rebirth. Not as a cliche, but as a ritual. Because to clean, to organize, to restore order is to be born again from the inside. Each movement of your hand, each act of renewal carries a symbolic pulse, the decision to release the old chaos that no longer resonates with your becoming. When you hold that intention, something subtle shifts inside. The unconscious stirs. It begins to awaken to new energy, new forms of being, new beginnings, waiting to unfold. The simple act of intention, when done consciously, sets fire to invisible layers of the self. That's how transformation always begins. Not with grand gestures, but with quiet consent. Because cleaning in truth is not about order. It's about relationship, a dialogue between what you can see and what you can't. The wisdom tells us that what we deny controls us, and what we accept transforms us. The mess is never just mess. It is the outer echo of an inner resistance. Your mind mirrors your environment, the way a lake mirrors the sky. When the surface is still, it reflects clearly. When disturbed, everything fractures into distortion. Look at your room for a moment, not as a physical place, but as a symbolic map. That pile of clothes you keep meaning to fold might be the embodiment of postponed choices. The unwashed plates, echoes of conversations avoided. The dust in the corners, the quiet fear of aging, of death, of the things we prefer not to name. Every object out of place is a thought left unintegrated, a whisper from the unconscious saying, "Hear me." The aesthetic doesn't matter. What matters is psychic energy. The unconscious speaks through symbols, and disorder is one of its most direct languages. Your house is always talking, not with words, but through form, silence, and decay. The clutter is not neutral. It hums with meaning. Before we dive deeper, if this resonates with your soul's journey, please hit that like button and subscribe for more transformational content. Your support helps this message reach other souls who need to hear it. We normalize chaos because it's familiar. We romanticize it as creative or harmless. Yet somewhere inside the psyche grows restless because the soul hungers for coherence. When the world outside you becomes tangled, your inner world follows suit. The outer mess is not an aesthetic flaw. It is a mirror to the confusion of your mind. Avoiding cleaning is an unconscious act of rebellion, a protest against control, against facing emotion, against the structure of being awake. It is also a symptom of exhaustion, a psyche so fragmented it can no longer summon the will to reorder its world. The process of individuation, that sacred journey of integrating all the parts of the self, even the shadowed ones, finds expression in the simplest acts. Cleaning then becomes a symbolic act of individuation. Each stroke of order is a reconciliation between consciousness and chaos. Every time you wipe away dust, You are touching something ancient inside the archetype of purification that lives in every culture, every ritual. To clean is to make sacred again what has been forgotten. Yet when you cannot move, when even small tasks feel unbearable, it isn't procrastination. It's a disconnection between the conscious self and the deeper psyche. Your environment ceases to be a home and becomes an invisible battleground where unspoken emotions clash in silence. Perhaps you tell yourself it's nothing, just laziness, lack of time, lack of discipline. But watch what happens the moment you finally act. The body bends, the hands move, and suddenly the air changes. The tension begins to dissolve. Each gesture becomes a kind of therapy. As you clean, you don't just rearrange objects, you realign energy. The mind breathes again. You rediscover space inside and out. But it's not easy, because cleaning means staying long enough to hear the silence speak. It means being alone with yourself. And that frightens most people. Disorder is comfortable because it is noisy. It protects you from introspection. It's a refuge for those who fear the void. Yet the void, the stillness is where all healing begins. Your home is the mirror of your unconscious. When there is disorder, outside confusion reigns inside. When there is clarity outside, serenity arises within. It's no coincidence that people begin to tidy their spaces just when they're ready for transformation. The soul uses everyday gestures as symbols of rebirth. Sometimes sweeping the floor is a prayer whispered in motion. There is a strange darkness in the refusal to clean. The disorder becomes a ritual of pain, a way of clinging to crisis, of unconsciously declaring, "I am not yet ready to move forward." This is ego resistance, the mind's attempt to delay transformation. But here lies the paradox. The moment you start, even hesitantly, you awaken the process. Cleaning changes frequency. It shifts the vibration of a space, and with it, your emotional resonance. You feel it in your breathing, in the light, in the quiet satisfaction of reclaiming your skin. Cleaning, then, is not a domestic act. It's a psychological ritual, a conversation between your hands and your hidden self. The true question is not why you dislike cleaning your house, but what part of yourself you fear discovering once everything is finally in order. There is a secret most people never name. The mess in your home is not random. It is a symbolic pattern, a living message from the unconscious, written in the alphabet of dust and delay. Each misplaced thing has its own frequency, its own story. The psyche never stops speaking, even when the mouth is silent. The house then becomes the dream you walk through while awake. Disorder is not merely chaos, it is communication. Your psyche uses clutter as a code, a material mirror of inner imbalance. What you avoid cleaning becomes the exact thing your soul wants to reveal. The dishes whisper you have not finished digesting yesterday's emotion. The pile of paper murmurs you've postponed decisions for too long. The closed door says behind me lies what you cannot yet face. Modern neuroscience in its own way supports this truth. When the brain perceives disorder, the prefrontal cortex, the seat of planning and focus, begins to overload. The limbic system interprets that overload as threat. You feel unease not because the room is messy, but because your inner sense of safety is disrupted. The chaos outside activates the chaos within. Yet we often justify it. I'm just messy. I work better this way. But the psyche knows these are masks. To live in chaos is to dwell in denial. It's the ego's strategy to protect itself from the deeper work, the work of reconciliation. Because true order requires surrender. There's a strange comfort in the disorder we create. It's familiar, predictable. It gives us something to complain about, something to blame when the silence grows too large. This is shadow resistance, the tendency to stay tangled in the very suffering we wish to escape simply because it feels like home. Observe yourself. When you're sad, your room darkens. When you're anxious, objects scatter. When you're lost, everything seems heavy and slow. The environment does not simply reflect you, it responds to you. Matter and mind are not separate realms. They are in dialogue, dancing through what we call synchronicity, the invisible threads linking inner and outer events. You may think cleaning is about control. In truth, disorder often is control, a covert rebellion against being told what to do, even by yourself. Deep down, you might associate order with authority, with the cold structure of a childhood that demanded perfection. So the mess becomes your unspoken protest, your small revolution against oppression. Yet rebellion quickly turns to imprisonment when it becomes habit. Look closer at how you accumulate things. Each unnecessary object you keep is a frozen thought, a relic of a feeling you refuse to process. You hold on to the physical because you fear the emotional void it hides. The drawer you never open, the box you never unpack. These are not storage spaces. They are psychic tombs. The soul clings to symbols when it cannot face reality. To declutter is therefore to release a version of yourself that no longer exists. This is where Carl Jung empath and personal development intersect most powerfully. The work of understanding your emotional landscape, of developing empathy for your own psychological patterns, reveals itself in how you inhabit space. Your relationship with your environment is your relationship with yourself made visible. Water, the ancient symbol of the unconscious, appears each time you clean the sink. Fill the bucket, engage in the gentle rinse. Water transforms. It dissolves boundaries. It has always been seen as the element of psychic renewal. When you let the water run, you participate in an archetypal ritual older than civilization, the washing away of psychic residue. Each drop carries fragments of the old self, returning them to the flow of life. The sound of the broom against the floor, the rhythm of folding the breath between movements, all of it forms a silent mantra. Cleaning becomes meditation in motion. Your body, mind, and breath synchronize into presence. You stop existing in the future or the past. You return to the now, that narrow bridge where consciousness and the soul finally meet. A cluttered space traps time. It holds you in yesterday's emotional gravity. People who cannot let go of objects aren't materialistic. They are haunted by the self they were when they first touched those things. Every object carries psychic weight. When you lift it, you lift your history. When you release it, you release the energy bound to it. Even light behaves differently in a clean room. Notice how clarity multiplies, how air feels younger. That is not illusion. It's the nervous system responding to coherence. A clean environment signals safety, and safety allows the psyche to unfold. The ancient temples knew this. Their spaces were designed to mirror inner clarity. To purify the outer world was to invoke the sacred within. And yet the deepest resistance to cleaning does not come from the body, but from self-worth. What you do not clean, you secretly believe you do not deserve. This is the saboteur archetype, the inner force that destroys what would make us whole. We neglect our homes, not because we are lazy, but because somewhere inside, we've concluded we are not worthy of peace. But something miraculous happens the moment you move a single object with intention. The psyche recognizes it. The soul rises. The gesture says, "I choose life again." And suddenly, what once felt impossible becomes movement. Cleaning, then, is not a chore. It is an act of dignity, a quiet rebellion against the part of you that says you don't matter. When you clean with awareness, you are not fixing a room. You are realigning a universe. Picture a woman named Elena standing in the center of her apartment, sunlight slipping through half-closed curtains. The air is heavy, but not just with dust, with memory. For months, she has promised herself she will clean, and each morning she repeats the same soft deception. Later. Yet later is where the soul goes to hide. Elena isn't fighting against laziness. She's wrestling with the unconscious, that deep ancient reservoir where unspoken truths sink and wait. Her house is not disordered by chance. It is an emotional weather map written across objects. The table covered in papers, abandoned intentions. The bed unmade the mind, unable to rest. The closed windows, fear of illumination. The mirror streaked a self-image blurred by neglect. Nothing in her space is accidental. The psyche externalizes what it cannot yet integrate, turning matter into metaphor. This process of projection occurs when the unconscious expresses itself outwardly, to be seen, because inwardly it feels unbearable. The home becomes a symbolic stage for this performance. Every object plays a role. Every corner whispers, "Here lies a part of you still waiting." The act of cleaning, therefore, is not mundane. It's mythic. In ancient temples, before any ritual began, the priests purified the ground. They swept the dust not for cleanliness, but for sanctity. In Japanese Zen monasteries, monks clean the temple each morning as an act of devotion. These rituals represent the psyche's way of reenacting cosmic order. To cleanse is to restore the link between chaos and creation. When you pick up a cloth, the unconscious feels it. It's as if your inner self recognizes a shift, a signal that says, "I'm ready to face myself again." The body begins to assist the soul. Breathing steadies thoughts loosen. The hands once heavy find their own intelligence. The psyche begins to move through you like a current. Cleaning ceases to be a task. It becomes an embodiment of healing. This is active imagination in motion, a conversation between the conscious and the unconscious, enacted through physical gesture. Each act of order becomes dialogue, each wiped surface an answered question. There is something alchemical in this. The ancient alchemists believed that transforming matter was also transforming the self. They sought gold, but found soul. The soot of the furnace became a mirror for their inner darkness. Likewise, the dust you clean is not filth. It's psychic residue, the ashes of forgotten experiences. When you wipe them away with awareness, you perform alchemy. You turn matter into meaning. Notice what happens as you continue. The air feels lighter. The room begins to breathe. The mirror clears. And for a moment, you see your reflection, not perfect, but real. One does not become enlightened by imagining light, but by making darkness conscious. Cleaning is precisely that, a gentle confrontation with what you have ignored. And sometimes, as Elena cleans, she cries not from sadness, but from release. The tears are her psyche, melting back into movement. What once was stagnant begins to flow. Water, again, the great symbol of the unconscious, carries her emotions into motion. She doesn't force it. She simply follows the rhythm. Then something subtle shifts. The silence changes. It's no longer oppressive but alive. The air hums with renewal. The floor she cleans becomes a threshold. Each sweep of the broom, a prayer. Because cleaning in its purest form is not about perfection. It's about dialogue between what has been and what can be, between the self that resists and the self that is becoming. Symbols are bridges. When you clean with presence, you walk across that bridge from the unconscious to the conscious world. You translate emotion into movement, chaos into order, shadow into awareness. And here lies the paradox of transformation. You don't clean to feel better. You begin to feel better. Therefore, you can clean. The change starts inside. The energy of renewal precedes the act itself. The house responds to you because it is you. As Elena finishes, she opens the window. Light spills in. Dust dances in the air like tiny galaxies. It is no longer something to remove, but something to witness the material proof of life in motion. Even the dust, when caught by sunlight, becomes beautiful. That moment is integration, when shadow and light coexist, when even what was once rejected becomes part of the whole. This journey through Carl Jung empath and personal development teaches us that empathy must begin with ourselves. We cannot offer compassion to others if we cannot offer it to the parts of ourselves reflected in our forgotten spaces. Personal development is not about perfection, it's about presence. So the ritual of cleansing is not about reaching an end. It is about remembering that everything you touch touches you back. Each gesture of care realigns the psyche. Each breath taken in a clean space is an act of return. A return to wholeness, to presence, to the living conversation between matter and soul. There comes a moment after the dust has settled and the air feels new again, when silence begins to speak in a different language. It no longer accuses or reminds. It breathes. In that stillness, something stirs beneath the surface of the self, like a tide turning after years of hesitation. That movement is not merely satisfaction at a clean space. It is the psyche awakening to its own reflection, finally recognizing its face in the mirror of the home. This is the return to the self, the deepest archetype, the center around which all opposites seek balance. You don't find it in books or meditations. You find it in these quiet, unguarded moments when the world outside synchronizes with the world within. When the house no longer feels like a burden, but like a living temple, a mirror polished by your own consciousness. Cleaning was never about control. It was about integration. You have not banished the shadow. You have invited it to sit beside you. That is true healing, not denying darkness, but seeing it illuminated by your own willingness to look. The strange beauty of it all is that transformation always begins in the smallest gesture. You didn't start by conquering the chaos. You began with one surface, one drawer, one act of presence. But from that movement, a wave expanded through objects, through space, through thought. Neuroscience calls this the feedback loop of embodiment. When you change the physical, the neural circuits of emotion follow. But ancient wisdom would call it synchronicity, the psyche, and the world moving in tandem, each echoing the other's evolution. Now the house breathes differently, because you breathe differently. You notice the weight in your chest has lifted not because life became easier, but because you began to inhabit it consciously. What was once clutter now feels like an old story finally told. The energy that was trapped there has returned to motion. You can feel it in your spine, your breath, the rhythm of your heartbeat, aligning with the pulse of the room. In myth, rebirth always follows descent. Orpheus enters the underworld to bring back his lost beloved. The phoenix must burn before it rises. The psyche works the same way. Only by confronting what has been buried, the forgotten, the denied, the feared, can it renew itself. The dust you faced was never just domestic, it was archetypal. You descended into the underworld of your own disorder and returned with light. The gods have become diseases, meaning the archetypes not honored consciously express themselves as symptoms. The neglected home, the fatigue, the endless postponement, all are ways the soul cries for recognition. When you clean, you don't cure a symptom. You restore a god to its rightful place. You honor the instinct for renewal that civilization forgot. Every culture has a ritual of purification, bathing in rivers, burning incense, sweeping thresholds before celebration. These are not superstitions. They are psychological technologies, acts that externalize the invisible process of transformation. When you sweep your floor, you repeat an ancient pattern, the human attempt to turn chaos into cosmos. And yet the most sacred part of cleaning is not the result, but the awareness it leaves behind. The realization that your surroundings are never passive. They are extensions of your psyche, mirrors for your myths. Every room, every object, every scent carries symbolic resonance. The bedroom holds your intimacy. The kitchen, your power to transform. The bathroom, your capacity for purification. The hallway, your recurring thoughts. The window, your relationship with light. When these spaces align, the psyche feels whole. So when you next feel resistance, that inner voice whispering, "Not today," don't call it failure. Listen to it. That voice belongs to a part of you still afraid of clarity. It is a complex, an autonomous fragment of the psyche, clinging to its old narrative. Meet it with compassion. Ask it gently, "What are you protecting me from?" Because resistance is never the enemy. It is the threshold guard of transformation. And as you continue to dwell in this awareness, you realize something profound. The true goal was never to have a perfect house. It was to restore conversation between your consciousness and your soul, between the order you can touch and the mystery you can only feel. You start to move differently in your space. Your gestures slow. You place things with care, not out of obligation, but reverence. The home becomes an ecosystem of meaning. Each corner hums with life. Even the smallest imperfections, a scuff, a scratch, a dent, feel like marks of presence, proof that life has passed through here and left its signature. This is the heart of Carl Jung, empath, and personal development. The understanding that becoming whole means embracing all parts of